We've had some fantastic business leaders through the evening. We've had some fantastic people through the day on this global town hall at We the Women. And I am told the great news is that Kiran is with us now and we can bring her up. Kiran Shaw, the chairperson of Biocon, named by Forbes as one of the 100 most powerful women in the world. And for me, above all of these things, a dear, dear friend and an absolutely wonderful, compassionate human being who has never let her success and her magnificent achievements get to her head. I think I've never seen a more real, successful person who's with both feet firmly planted on the ground. So thank you, Kiran. And what an honor from Forbes, and what an honor for us also to have you here with us on the Global Town Hall. Tell us a little bit about, because I've been saying all day that we're here not to talk to you just about business, but the person behind the business. Take us back to the younger Kiran and who she wanted to be. I think not many people know that you actually did a professional course in learning how to brew beer, that your life may have gone in a completely different direction. And now you're here leading this fantastic company, highly successful company. You're a billionaire. But this wasn't always necessarily life's plan. So tell us about the old days.
First and foremost, Barkha, it's always such a pleasure to be on We the Women, because I is amazing for women. And just to answer your question, actually, when I was young, I never thought of starting a business. Obviously, I actually first wanted to become a doctor, and when I didn't become a doctor, I went through my zoology honors, and chemistry and biology were my main subjects. And after that, I decided to pursue a career in fermentation science, thanks to my late father, who said, "Why don't you go and do brewing?" And I thought to myself, what an odd piece of advice for my father to give me. And in fact, I
Yeah.
asked him, I said, "Why would you want your daughter to pursue brewing?" And he said, "Because brewing is a fascinating science. Do you know it's one of the oldest biotechnologies known to man? I mean, you're so, besotted with biotechnology. This is what you should be doing if you want a career." So, with that advice, I went to Australia. I qualified as India's first woman brewmaster. I came back thinking I would be snapped up because I was so qualified, but I was in for a rude shock. I think all the breweries I applied to in India said, "This is not a woman's job. Sorry, we can't give you a job." And basically, the gender bias that I faced because of the fact that brewing is a very male dominated sector, I couldn't get a job. And because I couldn't get a
Why
job, I
not?
was
Like,
so
what would happen?
despondent.
What would happen when you would explain, when you would go looking for a job? Please explain that. Like, what would happen?
So they would just say, "Yes, you're very qualified. We think you're very highly qualified for that matter, but we can't risk this brewery in the hands of a woman, because we don't think you can manage the labor unions. We don't think you can manage the kind of work schedules that brewing demands. And therefore, it is a big risk for us to have a woman in this kind of a position." And even though I kept pleading with them, saying, "I have no problems," they said, "We do." So, unfortunately, I had no option but to basically then look for something else to do. And it was an accidental encounter with an Irish biotech entrepreneur that got me to start this company, Biocon, in 1978. So I often joke saying that it was a gender bias that created India's largest biotech company.
That's such a story that basically you convert rejection into opportunity. But when those rejections came your way, Kiran, how did you keep the faith? Like, how did you not get depressed? How did you not get deflated? The normal human tendency at that time would be to say, I'm so qualified. Why am I being discriminated against like this?
Well, I was obviously very angry and very despondent, but then I didn't let it get me down. I was, in fact, I retaliated with anger and with sort of a sense of resilience, saying, "Look, I'm going to show these people that I can run a business." And when I got this opportunity to start my own company, I thought, wow, this is one way I can show them how a woman can manage a business, how I can run a business. So it was that defiance and that sort of retaliation with which I basically started building Biocon. And obviously, I was very, very excited that I had this opportunity and I was determined not to fail. So although I had another set of credibility hurdles when I started Biocon, because after facing one rejection from the brewing industry, I had to face a number of rejections from bankers, because when I started my company, I only had 10,000 rupees in the bank. I had no business experience. I was 25 years old, and I was trying to start this strange business called biotechnology that nobody understood. So basically,
Yeah.
again, it was all over again. And when I went to banks saying, "Listen, I need a loan, I need a bit of a credit line," they would say, they would take one look at me, they would look at the kind of business I was building, and they would say, "Look, it's too high a risk in all respects because you don't even have business experience, you don't even have collateral security to offer us. So please excuse us." So I went from bank to bank asking them for help, and nobody would help me. So again, I got the door shut in my face. And it was
Yeah.
one brave banker who took pity on me and said, "Okay, come, I'll give you a credit line." And that's how it started.
And how much was that credit line?
3 lakhs. I
And
still
from where
remember.
to where? From where to where? What a fantastic story.
Yeah, and then
What?
later on as well,
Yeah.
when I started building the company, I again had a problem because I was trying to scale up a homegrown technology, which I thought was very exciting. And I again couldn't get any banker to, give me a debt for scaling up the technology. And it was again a very a chance encounter with Mr. Vagul of ICICI at that time, who said, "Oh, this is exactly what I need because I've just started a venture fund, and these are the kind of new ideas that I want to back." And instead of giving me a loan, he said, "I'm going to invest in the company because that's what venture financing is." So I was so excited that
Yeah.
they took a stake in the company instead of giving me a
Yeah.
loan. And that was how I understood what venture funding was about, and how I could then scale up this homegrown technology, which worked very well for me.
Talking about Mr. Vagol investing in your company, your friend Rupa Kudva, who heads Umidyar, was on the town hall earlier, and she was saying that she felt that there was discrimination among investors, and investors weren't willing and aren't willing even today to back women-led companies, and how she thinks it's a real problem because her data point was there are 8 million female entrepreneurs against 50 million male entrepreneurs in India. So I'm just wondering, what's the toughest thing for you? You've spoken about all these rejections that you had to face. Do you think it was because you were female, or do you think that a man in your place would have also been treated the same way?
No, I think there was certainly a very strong gender bias, Barkha. There's no doubts about it. And even today, I completely agree with Rupa that there still exists gender bias, because I think when you go for a capital raise to a venture fund, I think men tell their stories with much more confidence. And I always joke, and not joke, but it's true. I say I always tell women that a man makes a small idea sound big, and a woman makes a big idea sound small. So women need to tell their stories better, they need to be more confident and go getting, and they need to push for that funding, because I think women are very capable. I've seen a lot of women run startups, excellent ideas, fantastic ideas, and some of them tell it very well, and they are able to raise the capital. But you're right. I think if there's a certain amount of capital which people want to deploy into new ventures, unfortunately, men get the lion's share.
I mean, even very confident women are squeamish about talking about money. Did you have to get over that for yourself?
Well, I was trying to fight for my survival. I was trying to fight for, my company to keep existing. So I
Yeah.
just went all out to tell people what I was trying to do, and I was very passionate about my business, and I made everything possible to tell my story well. And as it is, of course, I learned to be very confident. I learned to fend for myself. So I think pitching for that idea to a venture fund or a banker is extremely important, and you should never give up.
Yeah. And now, Kiran, you spoke about your father giving you this idea of, how you got into learning how to brew beer and the science of fermentation. But I know your mother has been a big influence in your life. And in 2019, when you were on the We the Women stage, you were talking about how independent minded she is, how independent spirited she is, even in her 80s, I think. So
She's
speak to that.
almost
What kind of
90.
role model? My God, she's almost 90. So talk a little bit about that.
So my mother is an amazing woman. I mean, she grew up and spent most of her life as a housewife, raising three children. And when my father passed away, she decided, actually, I encouraged her to do something with her life because she was absolutely devastated. She thought her life had come to an end. And I said, you've got to make something of your life ahead. You're too young to give up on life, and you have to be there for us. So I encouraged her to do something, and she started her own business at the age of 65. And
Wow.
then now she runs a very, very successful business. She's going to be 90 this year, coming year in 2021. And she is as young as you can get. I mean, she's so young at heart. She's got such a go-getting spirit. Even now with COVID on, she insists going to work. She's all masked up and with gloves, and she goes to work every day, and she tests. She's got all her staff tested every week for COVID to make sure that her facility is infection free, and she doesn't miss a day. So that's the kind of woman she is, and she's so she's makes she's a very successful business. I often joke with her. In fact, my husband and I often joke saying, "Mummy, I think you need to go for an IPO."
What is her business? What is
Well,
her
she runs
business
a
all
dry
about?
cleaning and laundry service, and she does a specialty laundry and dry cleaning service for sterile garments. So she does
Wow.
the usual. She does usual, the usual dry cleaning and laundry services. But she found this niche of sterile
Yeah.
garments, which of course started with Biocon's own needs, but now she does it for so many companies.
Fantastic. Now, when you look at someone close to the, being 90, still working, and the conversation we were having earlier was that not enough women are encouraged in our country to be economically self-reliant. Instead, we're focusing on things like marriage and children, which are personal choices, but should not come at the cost of being economically self-reliant. How do we change this, Kiran? And as a leader who's a woman, how do you mentor other women to not drop out of the workforce, to not give up on dreams, because personal life pushes you in that direction, so you just give up on professional dreams?
So I, for one, like you, Barkha, believe in women's empowerment. And I think for that to happen, we must be economically independent. I always
Yeah.
tell every woman that you've got to be economically independent. You might have a husband who can, who doesn't need you to work, etc., etc. But I think just for your own self esteem, you need to be economically independent, and you need to
Yeah.
be empowered and very fulfilled. I mean, I was just reading a book the other day about how many women actually suffer from depression, and married women who are at home suffer from depression, and a lot of it has to do with self-esteem, and the fact that they are, many of them are educated but just sitting at home looking after their families, and I think after some time boredom actually gets to them. So I think you have to keep actively engaged and I think being economically independent actually gives you that sense of purpose, that drive,
Yeah.
and that determination to do something with your life.
And I mean, work gives you identity, right? I mean, otherwise, in
Absolutely.
any other role in your life, you're something in relation to someone. You're someone's daughter, you're someone's girlfriend, you're someone's wife, you're someone's child. But work is you. It's the only thing in life that's only yours.
Exactly. You said it. I think that's
Yeah.
what it's all about. You've got to have an identity. And that identity is about being someone, your own person, and someone who's independent and doesn't depend on someone for economic reasons.
Talk a little bit, Kiran, of being, of having come from a place where you said you were fighting for your survival, where, getting a 3 lakh rupee credit line was very difficult, to today being a billionaire who's listed on routinely on international power lists. How have you remained real, and how has enormous wealth changed you? We're getting a comment, by the way, on our live stream before you answer that, saying Kiran is the most humble person. Can we bring it back, please? Kiran is the most humble person I've ever met. When I was in college, I emailed her and she was very welcoming of me to interview her. And please, can I bring that back? I actually can't read it for some reason. And she even gave me a Yusuf Arakkal art calendar. So I actually think that these are the kind of reactions you trigger. You are a very warm person, but has wealth changed you? And if it hasn't, how could it not have?
Well, the only way wealth has changed me is it's made me hugely philanthropic. I was always philanthropic by nature because right from the time we were children, our parents actually told us that wealth was something that we needed to use to make a difference. My late father, I remember I kind of begged him to, when I was trying to get into medical college and I didn't make it, I told him to pay a capitation fee, which he was horrified that his daughter was
Yeah,
asking him to do. And he said, "No way, I'm never going to pay a capitation fee for anybody." I mean, none of, in fact, I accused him. I said, "I'm sure if it was my brother, you would have done it." And he said, "No." He said, "Remember, Kiran, money is a currency with which you make a difference. It's not a currency with which you buy favors." And those lines stayed so strong in me. And I realized that, even though we were very philanthropic as children, because we always wanted to do something for a
yeah,
cause, when I grew up and when I created the kind of wealth I did, my first instinct was, oh, this allows me to be philanthropic. And therefore, I've actually, signed the giving pledge, which Bill Gates and others actually started. And I also decided that I have to make a difference to the less privileged people in a country like India. So I am very mindful of the fact that there are far too many people who need, a helping hand, who need, uh, you know, people like me to make a difference to their lives. And so I'm very, very keen to do that. And so I focus on, healthcare, education. I also kind of help a lot of young people, through kind of giving them some angel investment for their startups and things like that.
Kiran, talk a little bit about a backlash that an opinionated woman has to face. And I ask you this because you're one of the few business leaders in this country, men or women, who speaks your mind. And you have, you speak it freely. When you think someone powerful does something good, you give them credit. When you think there's a gap, you say this is what's wrong. You've been outspoken on everything from the lockdown to the pandemic handling, to the state of the economy. You get trolled. Sometimes, there are all kinds of people on the left and the right of the spectrum who troll you. Does it bother you sometimes, or do you now just not care? Because all of us are in those places where we get trolled for just being ourselves.
Barkha, as women, I think we are very sensitive. At least I am sensitive. And
Yeah,
sometimes when the trolling gets nasty, I do get hurt, okay? Because I think when you realize that people don't understand you, people don't even care to be empathetic in terms of what you're trying to do or say. I think it is hurtful when they troll you with nasty language. Okay, I am one person who doesn't like nasty language, and both of us have faced trolls who use filthy language for that
sure,
matter. So
sure.
that really
Yeah,
upsets me and it really hurts me. And of course, all I can do is block those people. But on the other hand, I think women are, you know, um, are outspoken and they do get kind of slammed a lot more than men. And I think we also not get taken seriously because we are women in some cases, We'll, oh,
yeah,
there she goes again. The typical kind of attitude that men
yeah,
have to women, who they don't understand that this is not something to be taken lightly. We are serious, and we are making very
yeah,
pertinent points. But it's not about, oh, there she goes again. Very often we get into that
yeah,
kind of, you know,
yeah.
uh, commentary, which I think is very sad.
But when you get upset, is your propensity to argue, or is your propensity to ignore it?
Well, sometimes on a particular topic, I try to argue and sort of get some sense or rational into that discussion. But when I find that the other side is just not willing to engage or see reason, then of course I give up. In
Yeah.
fact, very
Okay.
often people tell me, why do you bother? This person doesn't get it, just forget it. I said, no, I want to explain to people my point of view in a certain way so that we must in this country have these kind of discussions and dialogues, and there must be differences of opinions, because if you just want everybody to think one way, it's not really going to build a very healthy society.
Yeah. So we have about 10 minutes left with you, and I want to now talk about COVID, Kiran. You have been at the front line of analyzing it, of responding to it, and your whole sort of background and your training really comes into play here, and your vast experience. Dr. Soumya Swaminathan was on the town hall earlier, and she said the worst is not over. She said people are fatigued, people are getting complacent. She said the next 6 months could be worse globally. She was talking globally, not about India. Globally, it could be worse than anything we've seen so far. What are you picking up, and what is your assessment?
So, there's good news and bad news, Barkha. The good news is we've
Yeah,
started seeing vaccines being approved, at least in many parts of the world, and hopefully soon in India. I'm told it's quite imminent. So, at least we are
yeah,
going to see a vaccine calming us down and saying, okay, now we've got some hope. And I hope that by March or April, we'll get at least 4 or 5 vaccines being rolled out, even in India. So I think that is very encouraging and that's very promising as well. The only thing we don't know at this stage is whether those vaccines will work and protect us for a length of time that we need to. So that's really the
yeah,
kind of anxious time that we need to wait for. So the next 6 to 9 months are going to be very crucial for us to get those readouts from various vaccines. The other thing is, of course, these vaccines are going to be staggered over time, because not you cannot just instantly vaccinate billions of people around the world, and certainly in a country like India, we cannot be vaccinating a billion people overnight. So it is going
yeah,
to take us time. So as we sort of go through that whole vaccination process, we have to be very vigilant. People cannot let their guard down. They have to mask. They have to follow the due protocols of social distancing. And I, for one, believe that we must do a lot of extra testing, extra seroprevalence. For instance, if you do find people with antibodies, then those are the people who can take a vaccine later on, right? So we need to do that kind of testing as well. So I think there is a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of precautions, and we need to be a little smarter about seeing how we go about our whole prioritization and vaccination program so that we actually keep this country safe. So I think a lot has to be done, and I think people need to be very careful, because 6 months is the time I give in which people can easily see another wave erupting if we don't take
yeah.
precautionary measures.
So, I was interviewing on another program Dr. Fahim Yunus. You must be following him on Twitter. He heads the Maryland hospital in Baltimore, and he's one of the sort of key voices on COVID. And he said that he couldn't understand why all the vaccines cost so different. His hospital is going to be taking the Pfizer jab, but Pfizer and Moderna are significantly more expensive than what we're looking to get in India, which is the Oxford Serum Institute AstraZeneca vaccine. Do you have any assessment on which vaccine you would back, that you would feel comfortable endorsing at this point?
At this point in time, it's anybody's vaccines can work or not. I can't really. Vaccines are very exciting. The jury is out there to see whether it will do the job it promises to do, right? I mean, there was a video going around saying that you can get a very strong immune response, but that doesn't guarantee you whether it's going to protect you for a long time. And if it doesn't protect you, you could actually end up getting a very severe case of COVID 19. So I think these are some of the unanswered questions. Having said
Yeah.
that, I think we must understand that in a country like India, the first vaccine that we're likely to get is the AstraZeneca vaccine. And we are also going to get the Bharat Biotech vaccine maybe a month or month and a half later. And then you're going to
Yeah.
have at least 2 or 3 other vaccines. Now, each of these vaccines have their own pros and cons. Now, for instance, an adenoviral vector vaccine, you can only take it once. You can't take it again. So it better work, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean. The Actually, the Bharat Biotech vaccine is one of the old technologies that does work, but will it work in COVID-19 is the question. Then you have the mRNA vaccines, which will come later on into India, possibly. But again, we don't know whether they're going to work the way they promise to. So I think right now we would just go with whatever is available. And when is, if you are in the priority list, you're likely to get the first vaccine that's approved in India. If you're not on the priority list, you get it maybe 3 or 4 months down the line, you might have a choice of a bunch of vaccines, and maybe you will get more data about these vaccines, so it gives you some kind of informed choice. So I think that's the
Yeah.
way I would look at it.
So I saw an interesting question on the live stream. If we can bring it back up, because we've all gone through our journeys on what we think about the lockdown. Till I started traveling across India and reporting on the pandemic, I thought the lockdown was inevitable. Then when I reported, I saw the migrant workers. I saw what was happening to poor people. I thought the lockdown was a terrible idea. I think India can't afford a halt to economic activity again. But that's what the question is about. That if we haven't fully resolved the COVID situation, what will happen? Can I just read that question, please? What do you think? Are we headed for a lockdown situation again, or is it just not possible for economic reasons?
Barkha, the way I look at it, the first lockdown was very necessary. I think that was very well done. It was imminent, it was
Yeah.
necessary. A long lockdown, which actually helped us a great deal to contain the virus. So after that, it became very difficult by more lockdowns because it wasn't going to serve the purpose. And I think you've seen it all over the world. The main thing you need to do is to be very vigilant and strict quarantining and containment and contact tracing. This is what you need to do, not lockdowns. I think what you really need to do is that the moment a person tests positive, you know that what we did in the lockdown was to immediately do contact tracing of the first contacts, which is very important. Secondary contacts
Hmm.
become very difficult, but at least the first contacts need to be also traced, and all of them need to be quarantined for a period of time, at least a week or 10 days, and then of course tested and brought back into society. I think if we can do that in a very very vigilant and strictly surveillance way, I think we will be in a safe place. I don't think lockdowns are going to really help us to solve these problems because it's not possible anymore. The first lockdown was very good, very effective, but thereafter I don't think it was effective anywhere in the world
Yeah,
for
I,
that
I,
matter.
I agree. We have just 2 minutes left. I saw one other good question that I want to ask you about affordable healthcare, because I know that you come from being sort of a fiscal conservative. You're right of center, but you also believe in welfareism. So where do you find that balance between not being against the privatization of healthcare, but making sure that it percolates down to the poorest Indian citizen?
I think I've been a very loud voice against, big pharmaceutical companies who do price gouging. And I'm also
Yeah.
very, very, concerned about profiteering at the cost of patients. You can't do that. And I think we must, as a country, roll out a universal healthcare system that is both equitable, inclusive, affordable, and provides quality healthcare to the poorest of poor. Today, unfortunately, it's only affluence that buys you good quality healthcare. And if you're poor, too bad. I mean, that has to stop. I mean, it's unethical. And I'm very committed to, equitable healthcare for all. And I'm very happy I'm part of the recently announced the Citizens Lancet Citizens
Yes,
Commission
I was
for
watching that.
reimagining
Yes.
India's health system. And I think all of us are very committed to really looking at the current healthcare system that we have and to see how we can reimagine it using a large number of elements of financing, governance, human resource, technology, and most of all, engaging with the common citizen to meet their experience, to meet their expectations. Because I think today it's always been a the whole healthcare policy has been a very top down prescribed kind of an approach. And I think we need
Yeah.
to move into a stakeholder approach where you get a collect approach to how do you want to deliver healthcare. What do people want? We don't even understand that. We look at it from our point of view as affluent
Hmm.
urban dwellers.
Yeah.
Is that the way to look at healthcare for the poor? Do we know what they want? I think you need to get the conversation and the engagement going with the poor people, saying what do they want, what do they think is good healthcare. And it's, of
Yeah.
course, you have to make sure that there is a role for private sector, role for Ayush medicine, and we need to basically remove these chasms that exist right now between affluence and poverty, between the rich and the poor, between urban and rural, and between the allopathic and non-allopathic medicines. I mean, we have to make it collective
Yeah.
and
Well, we're
cohesive.
almost at the end. Yeah, we're almost at the end, Kiran. But through the day, we've been announcing what we have instituted as the COVID Courage Awards of 2020. And at this moment, we would, from the We the Women team, like to honor you and felicitate you with this award. And I do want your reaction to it. But before that,
Thank you.
just a little clip. No, absolutely wonderful, and just a little glimpse into what this award and what you and your journey have been all about.
Much, Barkha. That's so awesome and so sweet of you to do that. Because really, I
No,
just
absolutely.
I
It's
feel that
absolutely meant and felt, and I just want to tell you that we will be shipping the actual award to you. Unfortunately, this is a virtual event, but your trophy and your award I will duly ship to Bangalore. Just any last thoughts on the award, or anything you want to say before we say bye to you?
Well, I just want everyone to stay safe. I think all of us should, follow, the safety protocols for keeping ourselves safe, and let a happy and healthy 2021. We want to put this anus horribilis behind us.
Yeah,
Must
totally.
go and look to the future. We must look to the future with optimism, hope, and with a great sense of resilience that we can get back to good.
Yeah. Well, Kiran Shaw, who's of course our Forbes 100 most powerful women in the world, and now also from our side, our humble offering, the We the Women COVID Courage Award of 2020 for exceptional leadership. And there's some interesting comments coming in. I just want to read them out to you. The journey of Kiran reflects a courageous woman, and all congratulations to her, because she's achieved everything that she has through her grit and determination. Kiran, thank you so much. We let you go now. Thank you for spending this time with us,
Thank you
and
so
we'll
much.
connect very soon. Thank you,
Thank
Kiran
you.
Shaw.
Thank you.